Wind dragged across the rocky hillside as torches flickered along the ridge above Moab. Night pressed in around the camp, and one man stood apart from the voices and the firelight. Balaam, son of Beor, stared down into the valley, where the Israelites' tents stretched across the plain in pale rows. From this distance, they looked like a field of small lights, steady and quiet. It was the calm of a nation resting after years of wandering. Behind him, Moabite officials clustered near their own fires, watching him. Their king, Balak, had sent for Balaam because nothing else seemed strong enough to stop the people in the valley. Israel had crushed Sihon of the Amorites and Og of Bashan, kings Moab had feared for years. Now Israel sat on Moab's border, and Balak believed only a curse could blunt their advance. Balaam had a reputation for blessings and curses that held. The first time Balak reached out, his messengers came to Balaam's home near the Euphrates carrying gifts and fear. They explained that a people too numerous to count had come out of Egypt, defeating every nation that tried to block their path. Balak wanted Balaam to curse them before they overwhelmed Moab. That night, when the house was still, a voice cut through Balaam's thoughts with undeniable force. He was told not to go with the men and not to curse Israel, because they were already blessed. In the morning, he sent Balak's envoys away. His refusal sounded firm. He said he could not go beyond what God had spoken. To everyone watching, he looked like a man who chose obedience over opportunity. But the promise of payment dug in like a splinter. Even after the messengers left, he kept wondering how much more Balak might offer if he returned. Balak refused to accept no. He sent a second delegation, more impressive than the first, made up of high-ranking princes with richer offers. This time they did not bother with soft words. The king would honor Balaam greatly. Whatever fee he named would be met. Balaam's answer again sounded cautious. Even a house full of silver and gold, he said, could not force him to speak against God. Yet he told them to stay the night so he could inquire again, as if the command had not already been clear. That choice showed what was really at work inside him. He already knew where the line was. He wanted permission to stand as close to it as possible without crossing. That night, he heard that he could go with the men, but he was warned he could say only what he was given. Balaam saddled his donkey with a mind split between duty and desire. The road to Moab wound through fields and vineyards before narrowing into stone-walled passes. Morning light washed over the path as Balaam rode with the Moabite officials ahead of him. He was thinking about how the meeting with Balak might go when his donkey suddenly veered off the road into a field. Embarrassed in front of the officials, Balaam struck the animal and forced it back. A little farther on, where the path tightened between two walls, the donkey crushed his foot against the stone as it tried to edge away from something Balaam could not see. Pain shot through his leg. He struck the animal again, harder, anger rising. Then they came to a place so narrow there was nowhere for the animal to turn. The donkey stopped and lay down under him. Balaam lost control. He shouted and beat it in front of everyone. That was when the impossible happened. The donkey lifted its head and spoke, asking why Balaam was hitting it after years of faithful service and reminding him it had never acted like this before. The words stopped him more effectively than any blow. Rage drained into shock. In that instant, Balaam's eyes were opened, and he saw what the animal had seen all along. A heavenly messenger standing in the path with a drawn sword. The figure blocked the way. Balaam slid from the donkey and fell on his face. The messenger told him his path was reckless and that the donkey had saved his life by turning aside. If the animal had kept going, Balaam would already be dead. The warning sliced through every excuse he had built. He would go on, but he understood he was under a watch he could not bend to his will. When Balaam arrived in Moab, Balak met him with a mix of relief and frustration. The king had heard about the delay and the strange event on the road. He demanded to know why Balaam had taken so long and asked whether he could be trusted to help. Balaam answered that he had no power to promise anything. He could only speak what God put in his mouth. Balak agreed to those terms with his lips, but in his mind he still believed reward would tilt the outcome. Balak took Balaam up to a high place where they could see part of Israel's camp below. From there, the tents looked ordered and quiet on the valley floor. The king expected words that would weaken Israel before any battle began. Balaam told him to build altars and bring offerings, then stepped aside to listen. When he returned, the words that rose in his throat were not curses. He blessed Israel instead, calling them a people set apart and secure. Balak's expression hardened. This was not what he had paid for. Still, he tried again. He led Balaam to another vantage point overlooking a different section of the camp. New altars were built, new offerings made. Again, Balaam spoke blessing, describing Israel's future strength and the faithfulness that would sustain them. By the third location, Balak had abandoned subtlety. He dragged Balaam to a point where only the edge of the camp could be seen. Instead of cursing, Balaam declared that Israel would rise and that those who fought them without cause would fall. Balak broke. He told Balaam he had planned to reward him, but now he would receive nothing. Balaam reminded him he had warned from the beginning that he could not go beyond the words he was given. On the surface, that looked like integrity. He had refused to twist blessings into curses, but the desire for payment did not die just because he had failed to earn it on the hilltops. Scripture later reveals that Balaam found another way to sell his influence. If he could not curse Israel outright, he could teach Moab and Midian how to make Israel stumble on its own. He advised them to send their women into Israel's camp, to invite the men to feasts where sacrifices were made to foreign gods, to draw them into worship mixed with desire until the line that set them apart blurred. The plan worked. Israelite men accepted the invitations, sat at tables dedicated to idols, bowed before carved images, and lay with women who had come for that purpose. The separation that had marked Israel's life in the wilderness began to erode. The damage did not come through attacking armies, but through compromise. Anger burned through the camp, and a plague followed, cutting down thousands in a short time. Families watched husbands and sons collapse. As part of the response, Israel was commanded to strike Midian. When the army went out, Balaam was there among Midian's leaders, standing with the people he had taught to ensnare Israel. Whatever wealth he had gained from his counsel, it did not shield him. He died by the sword, listed in the record as one more enemy cut down in that campaign. His story echoed through later generations as a warning about what happens when spiritual gifts and greed mix. Balaam had heard clearly. He had been spared on the road when he should have died. He had stood on heights and spoken blessing when he was hired to curse. Yet, he would not let go of the reward he imagined. In the end, the money he chased vanished, and the only thing that stayed attached to his name was the memory of how his advice helped push a nation toward sin. Thank you for listening to Divine Crime. Subscribe for more true stories from the most dangerous book ever written.